So today what I wanted to do is go over a concept that we use a lot in explaining what the Tanzu application platform does, the inner and outer loop. Now, I have to admit, I hadn't really encountered this phrasing very much until this summer when we were talking internally about the Tanzu application platform stuff a lot. By the way, you should go check out the Tanzu application platform. I should provide a link for you for it, but really just go to Google and search for Tanzu application platform, and you can check it out. It's a good developer stack that we've developed here at VMware just to make things work out better for your developers who are writing and deploying and running their applications on top of Kubernetes with all that enterprise fun stuff that you would want with that. So first, let's go over here, and why don't we check out, you can see I've been doing some pre-research, and you can also see the streaming stats. Very exciting. But let's see if we can find up the graphic that we use a lot, if Google has indexed it yet in its exciting world. Not really. Hey, look, there's me. Where is it? There's a fun diagram that we have somewhere, but we don't really, but it doesn't show up here. But you might remember, it's like a J on its side. Let's see. No. It's bound to be around somewhere. Maybe, should we really spend this much time looking for it? That's a good question. I'm not sure it matters that much. Anyhow, the idea of the inner and outer loop. Let's just go back to. Well, let me try one more thing. This is what was happening before I was recording. Why I'm like an hour late is I spent a lot of time obsessing over a bunch of video stuff. Which is no good. As I'm fond of telling people, you do not want to do that. Maybe the video actually, hold on a moment. I'm pretty sure we use it in, which one is this? Yep, see, look, they're even talking about loops here. Where's the loop talk? Oh, we're going to talk about this. Go through there. I know this is thrilling. I appreciate you paying attention. You know, I even referenced this in some of the stuff I was doing the other day. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, whatever. I'm going to give up. So like I was saying, so if you're trying to, the concept of an inner loop is basically, I'm going to put it in my terms, basically you have the stuff that a developer does on coding on their own or pairing up if you're doing pair programming. Typically, you would say this is done on a laptop. Now, it might be a completely self-contained system on your laptop. More than likely, you probably do need to make some kind of like network calls to services, or at least you've got to kind of like mock or simulate them out some. But somehow, it's like a developer or a pair of developers working on their own, not integrating with the rest of the development cycle, let alone not having to worry about like kind of enterprise governance and configuration and, all that kind of stuff. They're working quite independently on their own. Now, what happens is when the developer is done, they then need to integrate their code with everyone else. They push it up to probably get maybe you're using something else, but whatever. And that essentially, hopefully, if you remember from last episode where I said you need to have continuous integration and continuous delivery in place, then you enter the outer loop where you have, you need to integrate your code together and it runs through whatever build cycles and tests and configuration and, applying all of your defaults and things like that, like the Tanzu application platform will do for you. And then eventually, hopefully, it gets deployed at some point to production for people to use if things are working well. Does this one have the? Well, this is kind of an early version of the diagram that we use a lot nowadays. So I think that's a pretty. Here's this. It's pretty straightforward what these loops are, and it's bouncing around here. This is like an old version where you've got the someone doing their own coding, and then it goes out into the outer loop there. But it's a little too old to be useful. But I was interested in, so like, if we have that concept in Tanzu land of like, here's the development that you're doing on your own, and then that's the inner loop. Then when you join it together to everyone else and you integrate, that becomes the outer loop. What I wanted to know is like, so is this a concept? Like, when did this come about? Because I don't really remember hearing about it too much. So I thought what we would do today, I'm not going to have any great snappy little videos, is we should explore these terms on their own, apart from all of our fantastic VMware Tanzu products and marketing material and things like that, and kind of dive into what the rest of the world thinks about this. Now, I realized recently that searching Google, one good way to search it is by images, right? I mean, obviously it has image search, but for something like this, it's fun to like look through, especially something loopy like loops, very visual, to kind of like pick through where what to like read through. Now, good old Bain, let's check them out. The Net Promoter's outer loop, how companies make systematic changes. That looks like fun. Let's see what old or young, depending on your perspective, Markey is talking about here. Oh, at Vanguard. So you've got the inner loop. So the Net Promoter System, I won't go over that, but it's a way of rating if someone, their satisfaction with something, if they would recommend it to a friend or someone else, whether it's their job or product or a service. So here, let's see what they are talking about here. So the inner loop enables them to implement whatever change they can to make on their own. The outer loop is different. It supports improvements that go beyond the individual. So here, it's very similar, right? You've got this inner loop that's a person, an individual, and it's their ability, their tools to kind of like improve themselves. And then the outer loop, prioritizing and implementing of structural improvements. Pricing, always fun. Product, process, and policy. The fun thing about, if you study up just a little bit on strategy, you realize what a mystic, weird world pricing is. It seems simple and straightforward as a consumer, but in fact, pricing is a huge lever that you use. If you, for an example, if I took a bottle of wine, red, white, or whatever, and I took the label off, and I told you this bottle cost €5, and this bottle costs €30, you probably would think that the €30 one was better. I could have just arbitrarily assigned prices there. They could actually be pretty much similar, and I've just figured that some people will pay 30 and some people will pay 5, so I'm going to put a different label on more or less the same wine, or exactly the same wine, and just sell them to different segments who can bear the price of stuff. So pricing is always fun to think through. Anyway, so the outer loop here, and thinking about their NPS thing, is basically how you take, and it's kind of similar to the development thing, right? Like how you take the individual's improvement in their work and put it back to improving the rest of the organization there. That go beyond the individual team. So here, now why is this about NPS? Some of the, because of I see. Very large trade. Well, clients understand that resulting uncertainty. Wow, this looks like a good article about bureaucracy. Yeah, I guess this is like the extended Bain cinematic universe of NPS, where it drives a lot of other management consultant things they do, which is to say, improving how an organization runs to improve their share price or their valuation. That instills confidence and engagement. Well, that looks like a kind of a fun article, but just to, I'll put it here in the links if you're really, or in the chat window there if you're really interested in that. But, essentially what we're getting to there is, I like that. You have your two different loops. The individual trying to improve things, and so the case there was that there were individual Vanguard brokers who were trying to improve the process or whatever they were working on. And they could only do so much work on their own, but you needed this outer loop, the rest of the organization, to change processes around. So once again, we had this idea of like the work the individual does. And then when this individual has done work, the work of going back to the rest of the organization to integrate it in and probably improve how the rest of the organization is working based on what the individual has done, but also what the organization enriches it with. So now let's see whatever this is, a Microsoft Office 365 idea. So this is from 2017. So, took this one, huh? Anyways, hey, Yammer. Is that still around? That's fun. So what happens? No worries. All right, so let's take a look at what their idea. So here, I guess you've got groups, which are kind of like, are they email lists? I feel like groups is like an evolution of email lists. And here, oh, an integration with Yammer. So you've almost got this. So here, teamwork, where to start a conversation. People you work with regularly. So the core here, so you have this. Yeah, people you connect with openly across the organization, ubiquitous for targeted communication. Let's look at another thing here. So, oh, there's a little screenshot of a cursor there. So public, transparent, private, opaque, closed. Yes. So this distinction is like, you know, what you would typically, well, I don't know if this is exactly what it is, but my thing is it's typically what you would encounter in a corporate setting where you have a meeting to have a meeting, which instead of discussing with the wider group who's going to be doing something or working on it, instead you huddled, as they say. I think that was even with the Bain one, but you huddle together to make sure everyone's on the same page, or not on the same page. That's the opposite. You huddle together to kind of figure out what you're going to talk about with the larger group on, and then you go to the larger group and you talk with them. In this case, it's not so much that like there's a meeting scheduled. It's that you use, in this case, I mean, this is again 2017, but you use Yammer kind of like a company-wide. Everyone can access it. You broadcast it out to everyone. Is kind of your outer loop of communication. So, thinking of the work that I do a lot of, or some of, like there would be, when I'm working on helping someone write a book or do a blog article, we would have an inner loop of kind of working on it on our own. And then eventually we would get to the outer loop of like, let's share it for review with a much broader organization. Again, it's very analogous to the inner loop and outer loop that you see in all of in development in our Tanzu application platform talk. Oh, so here we go. Let's go check out what Red Hat's up to. Enterprise Kubernetes development with Odo. Right, so Odo. Isn't that the guy? Star Trek Odo. He's the shapeshifter guy. Mr. Bucket. Yep. So here, yeah, very similar. Pretty much the same thing. You've got this doing your development on your laptop. And then here you've got in the cloud. Again, the distinction is metaphoric, if you will. So then let's see regarding 365. What could this, where work gets done? Let's see what this is. Ooh, whoa, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 loops here. So, and then we've got a new Office 365 logos. I can now check that one with this. Huh? So here, they're using the concept of loops to explain, to kind of lay out the tools in Microsoft Office, the point of them. And so let's look, oh, that makes sense. And again, it's sort of like about how much involvement you have with other people and integrating with other people and exposing yourself, so to speak, to other people. There's almost a firewall, literally or metaphorically, to be found as well, right? So there you go. You've got Outlook. You've got your own individual clouds? No. Tools. Your own stuff. There's no audience. And then they, in this diagram, the inner loop is your team, kind of like what we were seeing in that past Microsoft thing, kind of like your core team. So this is the individual, and then you've got, this is more of like a team of people working together, close-knit team of groups. Indeed. And then the outer work is for the rest of the organization, right? And, maybe not everyone, but it's kind of like not your inner team of people. And then this is fun, the open loop. That's basically the world, the internet. So that's another like interesting distinction. You could almost say, so looking at the way we talk about inner loop and outer loop in the Tanzu application platform, if we add in core and open, core would be maybe not even a pair of people working, but check your email address, like your individual email. I don't know. I don't think we make this distinction so much in software developer inner outer loop stuff. But the open one, it would be interesting to think of like the open loop is maybe once your software's in production and running, getting input from users and other people. I don't know, but that's kind of a fun little loop thing there. So let's take a couple of other ones, because I think we see a very similar pattern here that's useful for thinking about. Wow, they really spent a lot of time talking about Teams versus Yammer. Let's see what happened to Yammer. Is it still around? Yammer. Let's look it up. I remember I used that a long time ago. Yammers include all enterprise of 365. Okay, so you could still use it. The new Yammer, which featured a redesigned basic Fluent design system. That sounds nice. They announced full integration in Teams. Okay. All right. Yeah, way back when it was going to be like, the Twitter of the enterprise. There was a lot of like activity streams and things like that. And, in thinking about Enterprise 2.0, not to be confused with Web 2.0, not to be confused with Web 3's version of Web 2.0, like we sure did end up with a lot of Enterprise 2.0 stuff, but the problem is there were so many of them that they were conflicting and not used. Like in Salesforce, you have Chatter. In Microsoft, you had Yammer. Then you have Teams. And then there's Slack. And like, I don't know. We never really got over that hump of people using it. I'm sure there's some people more studying this than I, but I always feel like the problem with knowledge management behind the firewall in a company and like Enterprise 2.0 think is that on the internet, you have a small amount of people creating all the content, and most people just view it and they might comment on it. But there's such a large number of people that like it works. Whereas in a company, if you have those same ratios, there's a small amount of people creating content, and it's just not enough content to be valuable, and not enough people create content to fill up your activity streams and things like that. And thus your intranet becomes filled mostly with like highly produced, not very detailed content, newsletters and training videos and things like that, which like usually barely scratch the surface of usefulness, let alone kind of like detailed intimacy that you want to have. Beats me. So let's see. Now, this looks like some electronic stuff or something. It's got Greek letters, so I'm out. Let's see. Real world, where it started. There was a lot of this talk. Yeah, there's more MPS stuff. Let's look at this, because there was something interesting going on in that Bain thing about internet loops. Again, back to 2017. So here we go. We're going to go over to New Zealand. So this is thinking about customer feedback. This shouldn't be radical. Customer focus. Yep. Crowdsourcing, calculating. Oh boy. MPS, not happy. Okay. A system to find out what your customers really want. So here we are. Listen. I'm trying to understand what your customers want without instructions. Having moved into a new house, once you assemble a lot of IKEA stuff, you kind of get the way IKEA thinks. And it's not that it's easy without instructions, but it's kind of possible. As long as it's small enough. Let's see. Learning loops. So this could be done. Frontline staff to drive service improvements within their team with a focus on their actions. The outer loop is where the big issues are resolved. So this is, I like this. See, this is probably, if I would have stopped and read that first article we looked at, it would have come here. But what you're saying here is, so you've got a group of people who, let's just be commercial about it, who have customers, and they want to improve the experience and therefore the amount of money and retention that the customers spend on them and referring them to others. Classic NPS thing. So you might charge, or you might ask an individual or even a small team of people to go and figure out, how do we improve this process, right? And there's only so much an individual or a small team of people can do before they bump up against constraints in how the organization functions. Like a constraint might be, one that I encounter a lot as an expat is that many organizations, if you're out of the US, they just won't sell stuff to you for whatever reason. Some of them even go crazy. Like my storage company back in Austin, they won't even let you log in if they know that you're logging in from the US. It's probably a GDPR thing. So, you got to spoof it with a VPN thing so you can log into your own account. So that would be an example of the storage thing, right? So an individual might say, and the storage company has done a lot to improve their customer service. They're pretty good. They've improved a lot over the 4 years I've been using them. But the individual might say like, not a huge reason, but some of the people who store their stuff here, especially long term, are some of our best customers who just keep paying long term. They live abroad and they want to access paying their bills while they're abroad, but we don't allow that because of GDPR, and that's something the individual can't change. It's a structural change that the organization needs to do. So you have to go to the outer loop and apply it there. I'm guessing that's kind of what happens there. So that's a different type of thinking about inner and outer loops than that's derived from even the Office 365 stuff, and definitely from the software development stuff that we have there. So, and yet probably used by developers and software people. Man, fun little graphics there. For NPS, reliable, trusted metrics, continuous feedback, and learning loops. Basically, for anything to work, you need to actually do it in a sustained way and have management support it and always show up and improve it and change how you're doing it as you go along. Sort of key tip for all business think there. All right, so let's look. I'm gonna save this one. If you're watching the replay here, I'm gonna put this one. Let me put them in the mentioned links here. Mentioned. So we'll put this one here. You can't see what I'm doing, which makes it very compelling viewing. And then let me go find, where was that Bane one? I'm going to save this one too. I'm mostly saving these so that I can go back later and read them, because this is kind of a fun little exercise here. And then which Microsoft one did I find? Oh yeah, it was this dude. There we go. So if you're watching this in YouTube, in the archives, you can look at the links below if you really want to follow along. Let's find one or two more. Wow, it's really like all over the map when it comes to NPS. There's some more like Greek letters. Not going to read it. Don't want to know. Can't understand it. Super dumb. I'm not super dumb. I just never sat down and figured out the programming language that is math, or as some people like to say, maths. Well, of course, there's also the inner loop and outer loop of highway systems. They call these rings in Europe, but that's a little too simplistic. Nested loops, these loops, build kit. So let's see when this is from. Here we are back to Kubernetes land. Look at that guy. He's really loving life. Uh-huh. Yep, there you go. Similar thing. Oh, wait, I wanted to see what year that's from, if possible. People often don't. Oh, there we go. January 2021, about a year ago. People don't always put dates on things. The worst is like in Medium, where it's like published 7 months ago, and you're like, oh, just give me a date. I don't, you know. So let's narrow this down to, if we say software, that's actually not going to be great, but it might, because it's going to throw your Microsoft stuff in there. So what is this? Journey to the outer loop. Oh, let's look at the GitLab take. So this is from also January 2021. I wonder if that's when, ooh, see, this is slightly different. Huh? Galactic outer loop. Sure. So this is similar to kind of like the NPS one. A little more. I'm obviously not reading it too well, but it's a conceptual thing. Well, no, it's not. It's more like the Office thing, where the inner loop is a group or people. And you know, actually, what is this one? He looks happy. Uh-huh. So what do we have here? Prioritization, insight. What are we doing? Let's see. Some of the tools collection. Sure, it's great, but I'm going to skip reading it. Oh, what are these? Oh, from 2018. Now we're going way back. Can't scroll this. Huh. Too bad. Would have been interesting. All right. Probably not Java loops. Journey to the... Is this the one that I was just reading? Yep. So I wonder who started using this in the Kubernetes world. Let's see if Google still does this. I think you once could sort by date. Do they even do that? Or is that like, am I having memories of Alta Vista? Time. Anytime. Maybe I should go, instead of looking at images. And if I were to say anytime, let's try in the past year. Is that last? So June 2021. Let's do a custom time range. Let's say from 01, I forget how old Kubernetes is, at least 2015 to 12/31. 2015. But then we need to have these two phrases. Improving math performance. Okay. Let's see. Let's see what this guy has. Kubernetes inner loops. Ah. But this is more recent. Okay, so here's something. Inner loop. Outer loop. Much better. This looks like a much better summary than my my hand waving through it. Okay, so that was not actually useful because it was the blog page there. So let's change this to 2016 and see if this came up in 2016. So we've got that same one, but again, it's just because he's got, you know, listing other stuff to read, which is cool. Uh-oh, okay, here we go. Inner loop development workflow. Let's see what's going on here. And then we'll also check this out. Oh boy, what are we going to download? You think it's going to be safe? All right, so here we go. Containerized op. Whoa, boy. I feel like we're going to go. Let's see what year this is from. 2016. All right. So let's look in here. Steps in the inner loop. Oh, there we go. What's going on page 39? Let's see. So I wonder if this was a... Am I supposed to be remembering that this is a core DevOps thing? So 39 steps in the outer loop. The outer loop workflow is an end-to-end represented figure 6.1. Is this 6.1? Okay. Indeed. It's the everything. The step explained in detail. Integrate. So what's the inner loop? Inner loop. Oh, that's page 26. And the inner loop defines everything that happens before they push the code into production. Okay. So this reference isn't from 2016. So now, okay, I'm going to make a note of this. Is this the first reference? Where was that? Here. Can I just copy a link? Oh, I don't know what that means. It's a PDF. Yes. So, open link in new tab. Download it yet again. Why is it? It's not a URL. That's weird. Well, let me just I'm going to make a reference that says, here is, so this, that is a 2016 reference. Now, the fact that they're talking about Docker, let's go look over here. I don't know what OpenMP, version of OpenMP, bring someone, let's see, inner loop. Oh, okay, this is just programming, totally fine. But now instead of that, let's look at DevOps. Oh, containerized Docker application lifecycle. There we are. Embedded, what is new? White graph database. Okay, so let's go back. So at least in 2016, that wasn't referred to there, but then DevOps, of course, is much older than that. Loops, infinite do, newbie Eclipse here. Embedded systems. Let's skip back to 2013. Oh, 2013. Aha. Now, let's take a look at that. Coding is like cooking. Right. Outside in my last post, I started on London School TD2. I can't see that. So, when you're doing double loop, you go around the inner loop to the time scale of minutes. So, outer loop on that. See, we're getting somewhere. So this was when people started improving in Agile, doing testing a lot more. Took a lot of time, right? Like you had to spend several years as an industry speeding up the ability to test things frequently. So maybe this is where the inner outer loop distinction comes from, is outside it's classic the professional organs. Let's look and see what you're doing. Double loop, you go around the inner loop on the time scale of minutes in the outer loop. Okay. If you talk about loop here. Huh? So we're tracking this down. So let's go back. So this is pretty good. So this is, see, I'm trying to find what year there we go, 2013. So 2013 in reference to unit testing. So we'll put that there. And let's go back. So what we have here, maybe we don't even, let's just put in Agile and see what happens. Check out the images for a quicker. All right, let's go back here. Agile is kind of an overloaded term. See, we're getting all of the Agile machine learning, 2 loops of the what? We'll check this out, see what the Germans are up to. Splitting the internet, yeah. No. So here's a 2015 thing. Sure, I'd love that. So what do we got here? There's islands. That's a nice diagram. I don't know. All right, so then. Oh, they look serious and very well lit. Oh boy. How we adopt technologies. Yep, go. The outer loop can't stay the same. It needs to be laid out differently. So do the outer loop. No, they change the way work is planned and assigned. Right? So here again, we have the way the individual does work is one thing. And then the way that the rest of the organization does work is another thing. They're sort of different. This is kind of like the kind of developing the Bain MPS idea of the 2 loops. Kind of sort of what's the next book? Let's dive in. Sense and Respond. I kind of remember that book. Bet that's fun. Okay. So that was kind of fun. So Agile, inner loop. Did it take our dates off? Or are we still... No, not that. Let's do TDDD. DD. Test-driven development. Double loop TDD. We looked at that. 2013. That looks like fun. Approaching outside. So let me go back a little bit. What were we doing here? I had the date. All right. So I want to say, let's put Agile in here. And then change this. So remember, the last one we found was 2013. But I want to change this to Agile. Okay. The relationship between manual. Yep. DevOps. The outer loop is there. Ooh, we got here. All right, we're chasing this down. So let's see. Wow, from 2008. Oh, does this go back to extreme programming? That's going to make me look ridiculous if so. Team loop, code loop. Okay, let's see. Going to interesting programming. 3 loops were described. Organization loop. Team loop. Right. Okay. So let's look up extreme programming loops. Introducing. Let's see if just the Wikipedia page follows it. So, loop. Planning and feedback loops. I see. So there you go. You've got a whole other type of loop, and that's probably, I'm sure things go back further. Planning and feedback loops. There we go. Ooh, there's even a research paper. The 3 feedback loops. So 2011. Let's see what this has to say. It's all about feedback. Pair programming. Test-driven development. Yep. Continuous integration. Pretty good. This is kind of funny. What makes CDD? So let's save this one, because this is fun. Let's see. So loops in XP. I'm going to save that down there so you can click on it. And so what you have here is, it's a concept of, it's sort of pre-DevOps software development thing, where the owning the running and the production and the configuration of that application is not so much the developer's responsibility, which is totally fine back then. Not a big deal. Let's see what's this Researchgate one. Irritation or opportunity? Boy, you could ask that about almost anything in life. So introducing, okay, there you go. So I think that is a good enough introduction to data structures and algorithms. I think let's see what this person had to say. So pair programming, collective code ownership. Yeah. Let's see what these slides look like, if they still exist. Boy, this is back when blogging was data rich. Well, so I will also save this 2008 reference back to extreme programming, even though, there we go. So then we have 2008. Let's see. Discussion extreme programming. There we go. So there you go. I think we've kind of hunted down and gotten a better appreciation for this inner outer loop thing. What can we summarize it? So at the moment, when people discuss inner and outer loop, what they mean is a developer working on their code. I was trying to do some short recording thing there, but I'm not going to. They mean a developer working on their code, however, on their own. And then the outer loop is when it gets integrated together with the rest of the application. I think what's different now is that in the kind of post-DevOps way of thinking, the developer also is in charge of the configuration, deploying, the runtime considerations of the application. They don't just give up and let someone else handle what the life of their program is going to be in production. So that outer loop starts to become more, that outer loop now includes the actual runtime configuration that's going on there. So it's not only writing code, running the test, doing your continuous integration, but also putting in all of the configuration and sort of worrying and testing, that's very poorly put, that you need for all your DevOpsy kind of stuff. Actually managing the application in production. So yeah, inner and outer loop makes sense. I think the distinction to draw is that this is a concept that we started talking a lot about in the late 90s from extreme programming, when we wanted to add, we realized there were these loops that people go through. And the first major loop in this way, the first major loop is a compiler, right? Like someone writes code, you've got to compile it. And then that loop was kind of sped up. The next loop was doing, chronologically, was doing testing. And the issue with this is, in order to get to a separate team like testers, you had to essentially wait. You had to build the entire application and wait for the testers to do it manually. So this is one of the first things that developers solved for, Agile thinking developers, was they started adding more and more unit tests, and they started automating tests, and even beyond unit tests, what are their functional tests? I forget. So they try to automate as much testing as possible, so they spread out that loop. These loops, you can see, are a fancy term for a bottleneck. or that's not, loops can have bottlenecks. And then after that, you get somewhere in there is the integration of needing to combine everything together. And then there's also the loop of deploying it to production, adding in all the security and the governance and configuration that you need. And then furthermore, this all gets back to the most important loop is, I would call it kind of the product management loop, which is whenever you're doing you're deploying your software to production, you have a theory about, if I change this feature, we'll sign up more people, or more people will be able to reapply for the driver's license faster. You've got a loop of feedback that tells you if the way you implemented that feature, if the change you made actually makes a person's workflow better, if it gives you business outcome and value. And so, you got several loops there, but we kind of talk about it in the Tanzu application world as far as inner and outer loops and optimizing those things. So I should probably think about, I think in that last bit there was a kind of a good summary of the loopiness of things. But that's a lot of what you're going to be doing, especially as a manager in software development. You can use this framing of all these various loops and figure out how to optimize and speed up those loops and remove bottlenecks for them. So with that, I don't know, should I? What time is it? I really should wrap up so that I can get onto the rest of my day here. Let me check my calendar though. Yeah, I need to. I got to get around to something, but I'm going to take a note that, like, I think I could just put together kind of an explanation of these various loops. It needs some drawing and diagrams with it that I'll come up with a better version at some point. But hey, thanks for joining me with this joining with me for this kind of like ambient kind of Tanzu thing, just hanging out, not doing much. If you want to get the archives for this, you know what you can do. Let me demonstrate to you. It's pretty easy. You can just go over to tanzutalk.com. You can see our lovely podcast, so many episodes, all sorts of interviews and great things. But if you go to videos, or just tanzutalk.com/videos, you can see the archives for the actual videos that we have. I'll post this one here as well with the show notes. But we've got almost I think now coming up on 2 years of stuff there. So with that, I hope you have a good rest of the day, and I'll see everyone next time. Bye bye.